Call the member for Patterson.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. I've just received a photograph from the office at Dunkley, and it shows the window with Peter's smiling face looking to the outside, and on the inside it's full to the brim with flowers. The people of Dunkley are outpouring their grief at the loss of their beloved federal member, Peter Jan Murphy, and I want to thank them for that. And I also want to thank them for their judgment in sending Peter to us as their representative. While some have said they were lucky to have Peter, I think that they were wise to choose her, to send her here to this place to represent them, and represent them so magnificently she did. To be fair, I wasn't sure about Peter when I first met her. I thought she was very confident, very outspoken, and she certainly didn't suffer fools. Maybe that was part of my problem. There was just something about her I couldn't pin down. And in this place we tend to befriend, firstly, our caucus colleagues that we may have been elected with, our factional state friends. But after a while you start to work on committees, potentially you go on a trip and you make friends with people from other states, dare I say it, other parties. But that didn't happen for Peter and I either. I really didn't know her very well at all. And then COVID happened and we were all locked up, and none more so than her, in Melbourne. But then a strange thing happened, as it often does in this place we call Parliament and in this strange game we call politics. There's something that the Prime Minister and I and Peter had in common. We had a staff member called Suzanne Heath. Suzanne Heath came to me from the Prime Minister's office with her little dog Peachy, but before that she'd run Peter's campaign to be successfully elected in Dunkley in 2019. And she started to tell me about Pete, as she warmly called her, and how funny she was. And, you know, if I really spent some time and took the time to get to know her, that we'd get on famously. And that was actually the case. So Sue created a bridge for Peter and I to lay down our factional disagreements. I once said to Sue, you know, I like golf. That's where you play with a hard white ball and you walk around in open spaces and you take your time and you strategise. And, well, Pete, she loves squash. It's a small black ball and you just run around inside in a box. You know, how can we ever really like each other? And actually Pete and I laughed about that, and it seemed to sum up so much of our beliefs. But then when we scratched a little deeper, we realised that we had a lot in common, none so much as our love of dogs, shoes on sale and British crime shows. And I do want to send a special shout out to her beloved husband Rod. It was when we first talked about those crime shows and your love, Rod, and her love for those shows, and I thought, the world's a funny place, isn't it? So I know that she absolutely adored you and you her, and you were her rock as she was yours. And in these coming days, when you find yourself without your rock and between a hard place, I want you to think about not only the legacy that she leaves here in Parliament, and as many have spoken about, for someone who served such a short time, she has left an indelible impression, not only on those of us who've served with her, but on the laws of this land. And every time you hear the phrase, you win some, you lose more, I want you to think of Peter Murphy, because she was the person who helped affect that change for all of us here in Australia. She wanted kids to know more about their sporting heroes than their multi-odds, and that is something to truly remember and reflect upon for her. The other thing that I have thought about today is we have a garden in Parliament House, and Pete and I, she used to tell me she couldn't grow anything, but I loved gardening, and we'd often laugh about that. And there's a garden here. There's specifically roses planted for members who have died whilst serving their country. And I've been thinking about Peta and the rose that we might plant for her. And I think she's worthy of a rose called Double Delight, because indeed she was a double delight. The rose is cream with a beautiful red edge. And a little bit like that rose, Peta wore her beliefs right on the edge where we could all see them. She was Labour to the core, and she was a humanitarian and a humanist to the core. She believed in fellow humans, whether they be rich or poor, whether they had high standing or low. She stood up for them, and she was a voice for them, not only here in this place, but her entire life. So, Double Delight could represent Peta in that garden. It is a striking flower. And occasionally we'd be chatting and she'd say to me, Maz, do I smell? She said, I can't smell myself, but do I? And I'm like, no, Pete, you smell fine. Well, I just want you to know that Double Delight has a magnificent smell. And they often say that when you smell a rose, it's the angels speaking to you. So whenever I smell that rose in the future, I'll think of you, Pete. But the best part about Double Delight is it's got magnificent thorns and it pricks like none other. And let me tell you, Peta could be the best thorn in the side of so many. And she used those thorns in the right way to make us all bleed a little better for our country. And lastly, I just want to thank Peta's mother and father, Bob and Jan, and her beloved sisters and nieces and nephew. It's not right. It goes against every principle of our human values and beliefs and culture. And it goes against, every law that we know, that you don't bury your children before yourselves. It is wrong and it is unjust. But you should know that your girl, she was the strongest girl. Vale, Peta, Jen Murphy.